Hello there, guys, and welcome again to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once more to discuss the results of TNA Turning Point. And what a show, what a show, what a show. I was surprised a little bit by the pre-show that they didn't really have another match. It was just full of like promos and whatnot. So that was interesting. I think the Joe Hendry one was all right. I think that kind of fit in fairly well and whatnot. Because again, like the main card's was pretty stacked. So I guess they didn't really have enough time for it, and they just didn't know what else to kind of put in that slot. So they just put more promo and that sort of style of stuff. But that's fine, I think, sometimes as well. You're trying to sell the show to people, and sometimes those extra promos and extra moments and seeing somebody that, again, a headline act that a lot of people want to sort of see anyway is like going, oh, well, we're here to have a bit of fun and whatnot and set the stage and, get people interested, get people, the last few people that might want to buy the show. I think 90% of the matches or things went the way I thought they would go. I think we got a couple wrong, but whatever. As I said, kicked off with Joe Hendry cutting a bit of a promo. Then we had the Knockouts triple threat. This didn't go the way I thought it would. Because I was saying I thought, Savannah will win and, whatnot. Rosemary won this one. Seems like an interesting idea to have Rosemary go up a couple here and potentially, get to that next level of challenging for the title again. She hasn't really challenged for it that much. Last match that she did challenge for ended in a DQ, so we got a little bit of promo here from Macklin, which I kind of felt like they probably should have interviewed Alexander here too at some point. I don't know. I think that this was all right as well. It's one of the more major matches that's on the show besides the world title. So it's like, and sometimes I do feel like maybe one more little promo here or one more little promo there, even on the show or even like after the show or sort of at the end of the show sort of is good, just to sort of something to set people up. Okay, what's next? Not just saying, oh, well, we'll see you next week. You sort of have some idea of what's next. I did think that at some point Kazarian was going to win this, but I was surprised that Kaz won this. That's pretty interesting, especially since it's like, AJ Francis didn't get involved or anything, and I thought, oh, they're going to feud or something's going to happen there. Maybe it'll happen next week. I don't know. But I think I didn't really talk too much about the first match there, but they held it together for good triple threat match there. I think they gave them a few good minutes. This one they were given some good time here to go back and forth, and surprised with I guess the outcome to an extent, and no real follow up. That's what I mean by some of these things. It feels like, well, you could have had something there to follow up a lot of these things, like especially these other little shows. It feels like, well, what's next? Yes, you can tune in next week on TV, but if you at least have something, it's sometimes that little extra bit and adds to the stakes or adds to the drama or whatever, adds to something. System had a promo about what's going to happen and how they're going to win and all this stuff, which led into the next match, the Turkey Bowl match. And I got this one on the head. I thought that Joe Hendry was going to win. I didn't really know who was taking the pin, though I started to feel like, well, maybe Myers will take the pin. I don't know. Or I was thinking it might be Skyler or Myers. One of those guys was probably taking the pin, and it was Myers. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. That's probably because there's something planning for the end of the show to an extent. I think this was just a lot of fun. This wasn't like that amazing it wasn't horrible match at all. I'm not saying that. Some people always, jump to that conclusion. If it wasn't good, then it was horrible or whatever. It was just there. Not really just there, but it was just there and having good fun, like it was a decently good match. It wasn't like too much to write home about. It was just some good fun and, seeing people pop. And I didn't realize, I don't know when they announced this or whatever it was, but PCO wasn't able to attend and they subbed in Rhino for him. Like, I don't think anyone really worried too much about that. And I don't think it would have changed the outcome of that one. So, yeah, I think maybe it changed the way some of the promos went, or like that Hendry did and whatnot, or whatever, and things like that, or changed some of the other stuff that was going on there and some of the spots or whatever, but that was probably about it. X Division title match. I was surprised that this one was like as competitive as what it kind of was in some ways. It was somewhat surprising because we haven't really seen much from Laredo for a while, and it's not like he's around a lot, and it's not like he's got a big story coming into this match or whatever. I guess, again, it's like that idea of like, well, it's not just because of what, who's coming into the match. It's, who's going, like the prestige of the title needs to be raised, or to an extent. And I think the digital media title, that title is just like completely forgotten about so much. And like on this card, like I said, I thought they were going to have the Knockouts tag team titles. They're a title I could easily forget about. If they just dropped them easily. I could easily forget about them. Absolutely. And the digital media title seems to be in the same position. It's just a title they seem to continually forget about. Oh, yeah, we have that title. Oh, yeah, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have much plans for it. But yeah, like it seems like a little bit forgettable, some of this stuff sometimes. Like this match isn't that, like, it's not that amazing, but it's just a pretty good match. But yeah, it's pretty competitive at points. But that's, I think, as a sort of saying to get Moose over and to get this idea of, well, the title means more now and that sort of thing, and we're going to give it more time and we're going to give it more things to work with and this sort of stuff. So I actually think that the next match, the Josh Alexander match and Steve Macklin match, maybe should have been maybe one or two slots higher on the card. I don't know. This was like an absolute war between these guys. It started out a little bit slow, I will admit that, but it was an absolute fight between these guys in there, and it was brutal. Like, we've seen some brutal fights. We saw that brutal fight that Alexander was in with Bully Ray. We've seen Macklin in so many brutal matches, that brutal match with PCO, that Full Metal Mayhem match, just so many brutal matches and whatnot over the last few years. This one was pretty darn brutal. There was a little bit of blood, but it was more or less unintentional. Steve was bleeding from the elbow, I believe it was. There at one point, I don't know exactly how he cut himself on the elbow, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't 1,000% intentional. But yeah, that's just like key to like some of like the brutality that these guys put each other through in this fight. And I got this. Oh, I also got the Moose one, obviously right, because Laredo didn't win that match. But I also got this one right, I believe, because I think I changed my mind when they said the Northern Armory aren't going to be able to be at ringside. So I thought, well, maybe Macklin could pull it out or whatever. Again, it does feel like, well, what's next for him in some ways, but it is great in some ways because it's like they were selling this up on commentary. You know, it's like been a year and maybe a bit or more, nearly 2 years or whatever it's been, for Macklin having Josh Alexander as his hurdle to get over, and now he's sort of gotten over it. It does also make me feel like, well, what's Alexander going to do next? I kind of, as I said, had an idea for him, but I don't know whether they'll pull that, you know, out of the hat. Like I keep saying, like I feel like he's in a difficult position because now he's just sort of been jobbing just about to everyone. He needs a couple of big wins so that he can start feeling like, oh yeah, he's still there and he's still hanging in and he's still, you know, relevant. I actually saw a really bad take of people talking about them fumbling Joe Hendry. I'm not 100% sure that they've fumbled Joe Hendry. I don't think you can tell that until he's either, you know, won the title or not won the title or has left the company. I think that the story that they're trying to tell and the journey that they're trying to put him on is interesting. And, you know, again, that's just the same thing here. It's just another story that has sort of culminated. The same thing with Marsha and Jordan. People were saying, oh, they ruined Slamovich when she lost to Jordan. But 2 years later, yeah, I know it took probably too long, but again, 2 years later, hey, here she is beating Grace, you know, and not to give away that match, but, you know, later, but it was kind of obvious, wasn't it? It was an absolutely holy shit moment, a few holy shit moments in this match. Yeah, I don't think that the tag team championships, oh well, it wasn't even for the tag team champions. This triple threat, 6-man tag match probably should have been before the brutal match here. I don't think it really helped in the placement of the card, but they had a little bit of a thing to support Chris Bay just before this. Now, Zachary Wentz, Trey Miguel was unable to attend due to travel issues. So, Matt Riddle is to the rescue. I don't know much. I don't think that this is a permanent thing. Some people have been saying this is Matt Riddle's debut. It is technically his debut, I guess, in some ways. But it's probably not likely that he's sticking around. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. I have the distinct feeling that they might not want to keep him in the company due to some issues that he's had in the past. But maybe, hey, if he's, you know, going to behave and whatnot, and they've got that kind of understanding with him, maybe he will come in and he will do some stuff. It won't hurt them in the long run if he, like, what's his name? Not Big E. What's his name? From Enzo and Amore and Big Cass. Big Cass there. What's his name now? W. Morrissey, and now his name is something. I can't remember now. I haven't followed what he's been doing. But people were saying, oh, it's probably a mistake to bring that guy in and whatnot. But no, he did a good job with what he had, and they took a chance on him and whatnot. He'd been working for a while, I think, and trying to restore himself up to where he, you know, is reputable and whatnot and that sort of thing. So, and they took a big, not a big chance on him, but they took a chance on him, and then AEW came along and said, hey, we'll give you some money. Come over here and work for us now, or whatever. But still, like, that could be the case here. I have that feeling because it's like, yeah, AEW just likes to sign everyone and anyone pretty much that they can, without any real plans of like, well, what are we going to do with them? Plus, we've already got 50 or 60 other people that were going, what are we going to do with them? So that's what I mean. There really needs to be just like AEW in some ways just needs to be like split into different brands effectively, so that you can feel like, okay, there's a champion of this, there's a champion of that, and everyone in that division of that show is catered for, more so. But yeah, I think this was very good match, but I think it was hurt by having to try to follow the brutality of, and I get that you have to have that kind of mashup sometimes of something different, but I think it really hurt this match because it was trying to follow a match that was probably should have been like higher on the card. Yeah, and then you've got the two main event matches, so it's like this match really wasn't important because there was no real stakes on the line, and I got it right in the end. I thought actually when Kushida was coming out with his tag team titles, I was like, well, maybe Matt Riddle's taking the pin. I don't know, or the third man, whoever it was. I thought, and then it was Matt Riddle. But yeah, no, Kushida took the pin. But this was like a moment where they all held up each other's arms and whatnot at the end. So, and I think like more of that sometimes is helpful as well. Something that I think that the next match could have used, being in that, this was all about respect and all that stuff, and this has been going on for a while now. I think it was actually a fair fight to the first fall, and even the second fall. I think the third fall was a little bit rushed to an extent, but maybe that's due to time constraints. I don't know, but I think this was really good. I think this, really is up there with their best matches. Like it's hard to have 2 out of 3 falls sometimes because you go, well, the first 2 falls really don't matter per se. It's the last fall that really matters. But it is that idea of the match again, where you start looking at these matches, that the momentum somebody has in a match determines who's going to win, who's going to lose. That sort of thing. I feel like these two, going in, they needed to be 1-1. I don't know whether that worked better this way, where Jordan kind of got the first fall and then Marsha got the last 2 falls. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say because that lit the fire under Marsha throughout the second half of this match, to come back and fight and get the falls. So it's hard to say. This one, like I said, was really, really good. Like, I don't know that like, I think, like, maybe the stipulation is again one of those things. It's hard to say whether the stipulation sometimes adds a lot to some of these things. It is a definitive end to their feud in some ways, and it's a feud ender that's more about respect. And again, I think that they should have shook hands or something at the end. I'm pretty sure they did, but it wasn't shown on camera. So that's just a little thing from the show perspective of like showing this as like important, and showing the respect that they have for each other is important. Also, I want to say very quickly that this venue was absolutely shit. Like, I think I saw it with the lights on it and it looked not too bad, but with the lights off and with just the house lights, I should say, obviously not the spotlights, but without the house lights, it looked really, really bad. And like, I don't know what you could have done, because this was just a really poorly lit area without the house lights, and then it's sort of like, well, will the spotlights and whatnot stand out? I don't know. So, and it's way down from their other shows that they've done for the rest of this year. Also, I did hear that they actually sold out this show. I was thinking to myself before, that there was only a few general admission tickets left, or whatever it was, maybe a couple hundred or whatever it was. So I didn't know whether they were going to sell out, but they obviously just sold out on the day, or people were, hunkering around WrestleCade and just sort of decided, oh, okay, well, we'll go and see the TNA show or whatever, because it's the first thing that's up or whatever anyway, so we might as well go and see it. We're here, but this just, as I say, shows the complete difference, because that's like probably the best that any of the other indie shows look, and that's probably the worst that TNA has looked ever in the last like 6+ years or even more. Yeah, like that, it looked absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So that shows you the difference between TNA and the indies, where like their production values are way, way, way better than what that was. But yeah, anyway, I wasn't too surprised, like I said, with this, but it was a very physical match going along through like the throughout, maybe from the first fall onwards. Yeah, it was really physical after that first fall. I mean, like they had some really good physicality here and there on the outside as well. Now, I do want to talk about something that happened with the main event match specifically, besides just the outcome, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it is, which is the John Layfield situation. I think this match was all right. I didn't really get to see the proper end of this because my feed cut out again, which is really, really annoying. So I just had to watch some YouTube, some Facebook clips and some X clips or Twitter clips just to see the freaking end, which was really annoying. So yeah, that was sort of pretty annoying there just to see that. But this was a pretty good match between these two. I think, like, as you say, like the shenanigans at the end sort of sometimes it can take away from it. This, I don't think it took too much away from it, but at this point, with Nick Nemeth finally retaining the title and all this, like, if they're not going to start telling us something or start progressing the story some way between what's happening with Layfield and what's happening with Nick Nemeth and all of that sort of stuff, at that point, it's like, well, what are you doing? You need to say why he's here at some point, or you need to start giving us clues or start moving the story forward, not just doing the same thing. We've seen the setup, we've seen the beginning of this story, and we've seen some little sort of progressions, but now we're sort of almost repeating chapter 1 again. So you have to move it forward from here. You have to show something, somewhere, somehow, who, like, obviously he's kind of on Nick Nemeth's side, but why? What's he doing here? What's the point of, like, is he actually going to wrestle? Like, is Nick Nemeth turning heel? What is going on? Right. What is the purpose of JBL being in TNA? Like, what is the point? You can't keep stringing people along and telling them the same thing every week for what has it been now, a couple of months, without any progression. So you need to start having some sort of progression in this story. What is the point? And I know people can be, like, give it to me here and give it to me now, like very impatient. But it's one of those things that is like, well, you can't just be repeating what you just did, because without something new added to the cooking pot per se, it's the same recipe. And eventually, especially now, it's like, okay, we're bored of this. Especially if you're not going to tell us anything more, or going to show us anything more, or going to give us something more to work with and to invest in, or an understanding of where this is going or why this is happening. Well, we're going to start just, like, not really caring, because it's taking too long to get to the point. It's not at that point yet, but it's at that point where it's like, no, right, now you need to let us see what is going on, or at least give us something more than what we've got. At least trying to get an interview with JBL. At least trying to, showcase, at some point, right, what is this all about? No, you cannot dodge around this, or you can't run away, you can't hide, you can't tell us that you don't know, you can't tell us, you're not going to tell us the secret. You've got to tell us what's going on. What did he whisper to you? What's your relationship? Why is he helping you? What is going on, etc. You cannot keep doing this. It's just one of those things. You at least need to start pulling those seeds out, because you've planted those seeds. So now you've got to start at least examining those seeds and saying, okay, well, where are we going to start? How are we going to start? And you've got to start with Nick Nemeth, because he's a known factor in a sense. You can get him on interview and saying, oh, well, I don't really know, and whatnot. And at some point, somebody's got to say, well, you kind of do know. He whispered something to you, didn't he? So now come on. You can't be keeping, saying you don't know when he said something to you. At least tell us what he told you. Something has to give. That's the point. So I don't know when that will be. It has to be within the next few weeks, because if they go back to, oh, well, whoever's going to challenge Nick Nemeth next, like, that's also becomes, like, the question. But when you're going to set this thing up and say, okay, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out who's Nick Nemeth's opponent for Final Resolution. And then we've got to find out who Nick Nemeth's opponent is for Genesis, potentially, if he hasn't already lost the title by then, which I'm pretty sure he won't do. But I feel like Genesis feels like kind of a new era of TNA. Again, like, it really does. It always almost feels like that way sometimes too when you're going into a new year. You want that sort of last gasp of the last year to be gone and say, okay, we're going in a different direction. We're going in this direction. And I think it does need to reflect the current situation in the US and saying, hey, you know what? This is why we're going to do this. We're going to actually go this way because, we're going to, lean into some of this stuff that is happening, or that we're deciding to do, because we are going to go and do something more out, touring Canada, Mexico, wherever, whatever it is, Europe, whatever. We're not going to keep touring the US. Maybe we are going to be here and there, but we're not going to keep this up more long term or whatever. It's just going to be here and there. I don't know. And again, it's one of those things where you start saying, well, you've got to look at the full year of TNA, 12 months, and say, okay, well, they're going to have Rebellion, then they're going to have Slammiversary, then they're going to have Bound for Glory. And, one of those is going to be either in New York or LA based on that poll. So we'll wait and see about what the result of that poll is to see, it doesn't really matter. It could be Rebellion, potentially, because that's the next one up after Genesis, because that's already sort of set. But then again, it could be, it could be Bound for Glory. It could be Slammiversary. You don't really know. It has to be one of the tentpole events, but you've got to start also looking at the more minor events that are every month, or virtually every month. So again, and then you've got to have everything else going. And I really feel like we've heard this from a while now, where they've been saying, "Hey, we're looking for a bigger distribution and whatnot." And Matt Hardy said that was part of why they kind of signed for a year. They're not just going to be here for a quick minute or whatever it is. Because I think that might have been the initial plans of some sort, that they would be here for a short run and then kind of wander off and go to WWE. They're probably still going to WWE after this run, but they're going to be here for another year. So we'll wait and see how that sort of pans out. But obviously you say, well, they're not going to drop those titles for a good 6 months, I would say, at least. Actually, I noticed that Hammerstone seemed to get injured in the match that he was in, the Turkey Bowl match. So hopefully he's all right, and hopefully he can keep working, because they had a win over the Hardys, and it seemed like they might be going to challenge the Hardys for the titles at some point soon. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Depends how injured Hammerstone is. They might have to postpone it and see how it all goes. So I'm kind of waiting for more, and same for the Knockouts division. It's like, well, what's next for Marsha? It seems like it's Rosemary, potentially. So we'll wait and see there too. But I don't know whether... I don't see Rosemary winning it. I really don't. As I say, I thought that she should, like, Havoc or something like that should at least come back, so that Rosemary can beat Havoc and, go about her merry way and try to, do things. I think Savannah needs a lot more time to sort of rise up the ranks as well, if she's going to challenge Marsha at some point, or at least challenge against Li-Ling Lee or whatever, and that sort of stuff too. So, and I kind of want Kylan King to come back, but it's like, well, when's that going to happen, and how's that going to happen, and what's she going to do? Again, it's another person that needs, opponents, and it'd be so much easier if there wasn't a goddamn tag team division that she had to break up just to freaking have a few opponents for a little while. Same with Savannah, same thing. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to keep our ears and eyes on things, and hopefully things can come together. As I said, I kind of felt like it's like, I don't see like the point in continuing. Like, at a certain point, it's like the intrigue of what is, like I said before, what is Layfield doing with Nemeth or whatever. It needs to be made clear pretty soon, or at least like hinted at, or at least like discussed on TV more, not like it's all this shadowy stuff or whatever else or whatnot, So, but yeah, like overall, like I said, the match was pretty darn good, despite me not being able to see the end of it properly. But yeah, I think the whole show was really quite good, despite the lack of like production in the arena. But again, it just goes to show you how good like TNA's production is when they can sort of do their own thing and whatnot, and don't have to be at shows like this. And it sort of was a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to say mediocre in some ways to go to WrestleCade, because I think they're, sort of a little bit head and shoulders above that, but they're the biggest thing going, and is a little bit disappointed to a degree to not see more stuff from the sort of independent scene, or see more from like AAA or CMLL or New Japan or whatever. Like, I'd like to just see more super shows between companies and things like that, or whatever. But that is me in that regard of saying, oh, that's kind of what I want to see, because I think that would be cool, or I think it'd be like, even if you say, oh, well, you know, you might know who's going to win just based off of, well, what is this person, who is this person type thing, and what are they going to do? Yeah, sure, but, it's one of those things of, going, well, you don't think that New Japan or whoever, AAA or whoever it is just going to send over their guys just to job out. They're going to want one of their guys to get a win or something, like 50-50 booking to an extent of some sort, just to make them, like, not lose too much face or whatever and that sort of thing. But again, I think it was one of those things. It's more interesting in a way, but then again, it's like hard because you've got to have this sort of thing happening on TV. You've actually got to have a story and them kind of invading or whatever, that sort of thing, because otherwise there's not much of a story to go with or whatever and that sort of thing. I challenge you. Okay, I accept or whatever. Cool. See you there. That's not that much of a story, If you're having promos or whatever, or having video packages and things like that, or pre-tapes and things like that going on between the wrestlers, it feels like there's more, or there's a Twitter war or whatever, then there's more to it, because then you can start digging into that and at least feature it on your show as well, to start saying, this is where this rivalry's going and whatnot. Obviously, these two guys, they've got different dates and whatnot, so they're trying to obligate their dates, but they're also saying, well, I know I've got to face you at this date and at that time in that place, but I'll kick your ass, like that kind of thing. So you could do a few different things and whatnot, but again, it's just one of those things that does make it more interesting sometimes. But then it's like, well, now you've got to find place for those guys on your roster or in, a story or whatever, and take away time from people that are on your roster for those people that aren't on your roster. But then again, you could say, hey, we'll send some of our guys over there and they can start working with those guys and they can feature them on their TV and whatever. So we'll kind of 50-50 balance each other. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. I just think that these events are pretty rare events, and just to see that sort of stuff going on between companies is kind of cool sometimes. Not all the time, but again, sometimes it's kind of cool to kind of see that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm curious as to, like, where you're gonna go from here. So, because, like, the only thing that I can think of is something with Layfield, and he hasn't wrestled, and it's like, well, is he gonna wrestle? Like, so if he's gonna wrestle and it's like only one match or something or whatever it's gonna be, it's like, well, how come he gets, to an extent, how come he gets challenged for the title? And like, I get it, but it's like, well, you've kind of got to earn it, not just whatever. Maybe he can win like a battle royal or something like that, or I don't know. It'll be hard to say, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, guys, that is pretty much it here for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. I certainly enjoyed the show, despite having to find the highlights at the end and whatnot. But yeah, like I enjoyed the show and whatnot, and I'm always this way, even if they're doing something really good, because that's me engaging in what they're actually trying to do. But it's kind of like, don't know what you're going to do from here type thing. It doesn't feel like you've got a really good plan and whatnot or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you do, but it just doesn't feel that way. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, guys, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one.